Happy Leap Day, viewers. Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Space Weather. Lots of stuff to cover today and more content after this video coming out afterwards. At least one cosmology segment. And happy birthday to Chuck. And first of all, we're looking at Stereo A's coronagraph here to see another coronal mass ejection in the Earth-facing region. And if you're wondering, Earth is out in this direction with respect to Stereo A. And this is one of the ways that we look for coronal mass ejections, headed toward geospace. And this one once again is, so 2 days in a row covering coronal mass ejections. And we're going to talk about yesterday's video in a moment. First, we're going to look at the sun in 94 angstroms. And there is the 48-hour video of that. 2 active regions rising there in the east. And let's check out the 193 angstroms view. And there's the 193 angstroms view. South Pole coronal hole looking huge and in charge of the current sheet, the heliospheric current sheet at this time. And by the way, yesterday's video was demonetized. No reason why. We've appealed the demonetization of yesterday's video. It's entitled Coronal Mass Ejection Blasts Off, Another Strikes Magnetosphere and Cosmic Rays. And if you're a patron, you're all too aware of the cosmic rays, and we'll get to it in a minute. And first we're going to show you what an extremely violent coronal mass ejection looks like. This event having happened on January 20th, 2005. This coronal mass ejection arrived at the Earth in only a half an hour. So low-speed coronal mass ejections, they typically take about 2 days to arrive. This one took only a half an hour. And we're going to cover it more in depth in the cosmology segment, as there are some articles about this event. And if you want to check it out, you can view it yourself at the Soho movie theater. You can load up whatever dates you like. And here's the current coronagraph. And we're just showing you this to show you the difference between a really strong sun at time of extreme activity versus a solar minimum sun. And you will see the coronal mass ejection here headed out in this direction. Very similar telemetry to the last coronal mass ejection, the one that we covered yesterday. And you can see that a little bit better on the LASCO C3. You'll see it in this region. And while it looks like it will largely miss to the west, there are some Earth-facing components there as we see some ejecta on both sides of the coronagraph. And next we'll head over to HelioViewer and take a look at the fields. There's 171 angstroms. And again, you can see those active regions there on the east. Here are the fields. We'll fade out to those. No sunspots currently. A little bit of activity right in the center of the Earth-facing disk, right about here. A little bit of magnetic organization happening there. Otherwise, fairly low levels of activity. And let's look at some custom movies from today's activity. Here's the nearly full view at 171 angstroms. Here's me vanishing. Here's a more close-up view of the activity rising in the east. We'll let that play through a second time for you, so you don't have to access too much YouTube junkware controls. How about a third time? And here's that exact same region in 304 angstroms. And this region up here, this is a cycle 25 activity. And this one down here looks like it's degrading. Let's look at some more data. KP index currently at 2. And let's talk about whales and their ability to locate themselves during solar storms, etc. Interesting story on spaceweather.com today, indicating that the 10.7 centimeter radio flux is the culprit, not the magnetic fields. So according to the statistics, there's a 4.3-fold increase in the likelihood of a stranding of the whales on days with high 28 megahertz, otherwise known as 10.7 centimeter radio flux radio emission. On the other hand, no relationship between the strandings and geomagnetic activity. So radio frequencies are responsible, not magnetism in this case. And so that is an interesting insight into the way that the chemical compass in the gray whales works. By the way, 10.7 centimeter radio flux still at 71 solar flux units. And we're seeing a tiny increase in the X-ray flux here, associated with that region rising, most likely. And today we're going to do cosmic rays. So here's the apatity neutron monitor. And there is indeed an uptick over the past 30 days at apatity. At Barentsburg, not the same uptick really there. Slight uptick, slightly less than at apatity. Next, taking a look at the Athens neutron monitor. Pretty flat there on the past 30 days. Mexico City's monitor. There's Mexico City. Quite flat over the past 30 days there. And here is the extreme, possibly anomalous, but possibly legit data from the Moscow neutron monitor. Keep in mind, folks, when cosmic rays strike, they can hit a single point source, like a beam. They can also come down in sheets. Keep in mind, the objects that are emitting cosmic rays are likely rotating just like the objects receiving the cosmic rays. And so all of those tidal effects have an effect on the way they arrive at the planet. So there's the Moscow neutron monitor, and that's pretty extreme to say the least. Again, thanks to patrons who knew about this 2 days ago, nearly 2 days ago. And last but not least, we'll look at Oulu, Finland. And I would note that we don't note that extremely high cosmic ray signature at any of the monitors besides Moscow, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it is bad data. Anyway, there's Oulu. We'll also look at DOMC Antarctica, as DOMB Antarctica is not sending back data. And there's the data from DOMC Antarctica. And if you want to monitor cosmic rays yourself, we always leave the links below the videos to the network of cosmic ray stations. Next, we'll head to the real-time solar wind. And we see a shifting phi angle and BT-BZ. Looks like an extreme field kicking up right here. The BT is all the way up to 11.43, which is very high levels of nanotesla. And the BZ dropping way down. South Pole coronal hole magnetic connection probably beginning, as the phi angle's at 230 degrees, pretty close to 180, an indication of a sun and Earth to sun magnetic connection. Solar wind densities come down since yesterday to 4.5 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed looking steady over the past 24, currently at 432 kilometers a second, and probably in the state of shifting as I talk. There's the current state of affairs at ACE, looking corroborative. You can see the shift in the BT-BZ as well as the phi angle. So that's something to keep an eye on. And when I say eye on, the pun's intentional. Here's the 4 hours of geospace magnetosphere movies. We cover this every day on the channel, as this data is not an accessible archive form yet. And it looks like we have multiple double layers and multiple Van Allen belts forming out there. Some slight oddities there in the shape of the pressure. Let's look at the ground geospace magnetic perturbations next. First, we're going to look at the poles, as we saw some fairly global magnetic pulses, some of which appear to be centered around Hawaii. Another one of the weirder places on the planet. as we see both ground magnetic perturbations there, as well as ionospheric perturbations south of Hawaii. Here are the geospace magnetic perturbations from the globe view, and you can see those pulses out of the South Pacific there, west of South America, really this whole region in here. And this data courtesy University of Michigan. And we cover all this stuff daily to act as a resource for like-minded individuals who are studying the same stuff as we are. Here's the continued spikiness in the GOES magnetometer that we've been forecasting day in and day out. And this is going to continue. And we're going to see some additional, shall we say, anomalies in the GOES magnetometer as these active regions rise. That's cycle 24 plage rising in the east right now. Let's look at the Gong 2 data. This is the top view ecliptic plane field plot. And you can see these areas here where you've got some plasma suspension. And we don't really see any evidence of the coronal mass ejection on this one. It's pretty small, it's pretty diffuse, and it's probably headed out this way a bit, based on what we looked at earlier on the LASCO and the Stereo A coronagraph. Anyway, we will see continued spikiness in the GOES magnetometer as a result of this. And man, look at Stereo A's field force lines. They're all over the place. Looks like some anomalous data perhaps out there. And let's look at the line of sight field plot, which shows the B field here in blue. South Pole coronal hole. South solar polar field shown in red, North solar polar field shown in green. And nothing too exciting to comment on there except the size and power of that South Pole coronal hole associated with the South solar polar field. Relativistic electrons are at moderate levels. By the way, that data is at solon.info. solon.info/solar. And here's the GOES electron flux, which has cratered as we forecasted. It did actually reach into alert levels for a little bit yesterday, but nothing to really get your panties bunched up about. There is the GOES electron flux. And here's the total electron content forecast. Nothing too exciting happening there. Fairly normal GPS errors should be happening around the equator at noon. Next, we'll look at 6 hours of the ionosphere, as we do daily. As part of the purpose of this channel is daily data archiving. So we see a pretty charged up ionosphere here on the sun side, making it all the way up to 14 megahertz there. Here's the latest image. Pretty significant charge disparities happen there around the equator. And let's move on to talk about demonetization of our videos. Once again, yesterday's video demonetized for ad suitability. So we've appealed it. I don't remember saying anything controversial. If you enjoy the content on YouTube, please press like and subscribe. Watch our other videos. We've got a whole bunch of content that isn't a daily space weather video, and we'll be doing more of that in time. Also check us out at twitch.tv/smAsho, where we do our live streams if there's anything really serious happening, where we're expecting a coronal mass ejection to hit the Earth in only a half an hour. We might happen to see it, and we might happen to inform you of it before it happens. And if we're going to be doing that, we'll be streaming live on Twitch, because their software is great, unlike some junkware manufacturers who will remain unnamed. Also, thanks to our patrons, the true source of funding for the channel, as YouTube tries its best, as we just demonstrated, to pay us nothing for the content. So thanks, patrons, whether you're an assistant producer or an associate producer at the gold level. We greatly appreciate your patronage, and this is why we provide you with the data before everybody else. So if you're not a patron yet, consider becoming one, as we've got a lot of things to do in 2012, and we need a lot more funding and assistance from our viewers to help us out. If you don't like Patreon, you could also use Subscribestar, our latest foray into crowdfunding. So check out Subscribestar. The layers are different at both. Also, don't forget to follow us on Alt Tech, as our YouTube channel could be suddenly deleted for absolutely no reason and with absolutely no warning nor explanation. So perhaps watch our video yesterday about pearl-clutching pussies, Bernie believers, censorship, frauds, scams, physics, and the real world. Or maybe our cringeworthy video, which has just reached 500 views. Check it out. Also, check us out on Minds.com, the free speech-based social media. It's an alternative to Facebook. It won't censor you. It won't shadow ban you. We're pushing 600,000 views there on Minds. So set up an account there, especially if you're sick of the junkware known as Facebook. Next, we're going to look at about 24 hours of pressure maps here on Windy.com, who also has a great mobile app. I'm going to let that advance through, and thanks for the comment yesterday, Brett. I have changed the position of this, and you are exactly right. This is a better way to have it centered anyway, as it shows Europe, Australia, and the US much better. Please leave a comment if you're viewing from a different continent. Yesterday's live premiere viewing featured at least 3 continents. We had a South American, a European viewer from England, as well as lots of North American viewers. So thanks everybody attending the live premiere events. We greatly appreciate that, as we need to view the videos just to edit them, much less to view the content. And keep in mind, I am not only smAsho, I'm also a client, as I do watch the videos, believe it or not. Next, we're going to go to earthquakes. And here's the current earthquake situation map. We're still experiencing a drought of big earthquakes. Let's just go up the list, citing the deep ones and any big ones. Nothing over a 6 magnitude in the past 24. Here is a 4.5 over Afghanistan. And to make matters worse, that is at a depth of 108 kilometers. Here's a much deeper one here at Vostok, Russia. That 4.3 at 261 kilometers. Here's a deep quake in Indonesia. So it's officially a deep quake event, folks. And the ionosphere is charged up at the same time. Is it a coincidence? Maybe. Please leave a comment if you have some sort of an opinion on the relationship between ionospheric anomalies and earthquakes. Here's a 4.1 at Japan. That is another extreme depth quake. 460 kilometers. Here's a deep quake at Fiji at a 4.7 magnitude. In the deep quake capital of the world, that one at 149.7 kilometers. Here's a deep quake at Chile. Here's a deep quake at Argentina. Here's a surface quake at Tonga, also the deep quake capital of the world. That whole area, especially north of New Zealand, we see quakes at hundreds of kilometers on the regs. Here's another deep quake in western South America, a 4.5 magnitude. Here's another deep quake at Venezuela, 4.6 magnitude. So big time deep quake event happening right now, folks. Another deep quake at Afghanistan. Heads up Middle East for a larger quake at the surface. My favorite places for a large quake are western South America, Oceania, the areas north of Australia, and a little bit of Middle East too, as we've been seeing deep quakes there as well. If you're in those regions, please have an earthquake plan. Please plan to be an asset, not a liability, as if you're in a disaster and you're wondering where the cavalry is, it's probably because you're the cavalry. Have you checked out smAshomash.com/forum? We're the cavalry when it comes to information about coronavirus, COVID-19. Oh yeah, that's right. There's a 7-page forum on it. It's smAshomash.com/forum. It's in the free-for-all section. It's got its own thread. You can provide a convenient link to all your friends and foes. And thanks to Atmanhotep for citing another source of information, bnonews.com. Totally unvetted, but I checked out the link you sent and it looks good to me. Let's check out the current state of affairs according to the Johns Hopkins site. They've got this live tracker here showing us that the current number of confirmed cases is at 85,000, still undoubtedly underreported because so many people are quarantined. Total deaths pushing 3,000. We'll probably reach that number today, unfortunately. Here are the current graphs, and this yellow graph is, at least it's not exponentially moving up. It's just got this minor it's got this linear slope here. And even the cases in China are slowly leveling out. Again, keep in mind it is underreported, folks. And while this isn't particularly deadly compared to things like the flu, just get enough rest, take your vitamins, wash your hands. If somebody sneezes on you, I don't know, jump in the shower. And most importantly, check out smAshomash.com/forum. Are we at 200 yet? 198 users. So what a success that is. Thanks everybody for setting up logins there. Let's look at the volcanoes for today, Leap Day. Semeru back on the list, exploding, producing a 14,000-foot ash plume. Dacono exploding. 7,000-foot ash plume there. Mauna Loa on the list as it keeps expanding. No significant changes in the fumarole temperature and no significant changes in the gas concentrations. However, an expanding top of a volcano is an indication that magma chambers are filling, as well as the seismic activity that we've been documenting there for months on the channel. When you see an earthquake with a depth of something like negative 1.6 kilometers, and it's right below the main caldera of Mauna Loa, well, that's a magmatic earthquake. Popocatépetl exploding, 19,000-foot ash plume there. Fuego dispersed its ash. Nevado del Ruiz, ash cloud detected by satellite. Sangay exploding, 6,400-meter or 21,000-foot ash plume there. Revenador exploding, flight level 14,000 there. And while we're unable to detect activity at Sabancaya, it's probably cloudy, please do not attempt to pole vault the caldera, as that would be bad times. Side note, please support the channel, as we're doing a lot of things, and we need lots more funding. And looking at lightningmaps.org, we see some lightning over the northern Middle East. As well as in the South Atlantic and off the coast of the U.S. Check it out, lightningmaps.org, if you haven't. It's good times. Next, we'll move into value-added services here today on Leap Day. And there's the U.S. Doppler radar map. Some snow falling in North Carolina down there. Check it out. And next we'll look at the water vapor map. Actually, we're going to look at the jet streams first. Here are the jet streams of the western world. Doubled up jet streams over the western U.S., as well as a concentration of jet streams over northern Florida. Extreme bends in the central Atlantic region. And we're going to hear about some Arctic warming today, because you can see the jet streams over here are blowing from south to north. Let's look at the eastern world. There are the eastern world's jets. We got this centered on India. Some oddities down there in the southern hemisphere. Check it out. Extreme 180 plus degree bends in the jet stream. Meridional jet stream flow at its finest. Here's a water vapor map of Europe and Africa. Here's the water vapor map of the U.S. And for the second day in a row, we're going to zoom in on the area over Arkansas. As I would note that not everything is electric. However, some things are. And the Hall effect is absolutely electric. And you can see down in this area here, whoops, you can see down here in this area here, the water is traveling in this direction. And yet the currents are in this direction. That is the Hall effect in the atmosphere, folks. Don't forget, folks, dry air is more conductive than moist air, and also more massive. Have you had your protons today? Hey, Smash Team. Thanks for tuning in, Smash Team. Thanks so much. Stay tuned for 3, a bonus. Features first, the intensitygram in high res to show 0 sunspots. Next, the colorized magnetogram to show the current state of affairs of the only magnetically significant region, right there, right in the Earth-facing zone. And last but not least, it's the 48-hour video of the local yellow dwarf in 131 angstroms. We're going to actually zoom in a little bit on those active rising areas. before we close this thing out, we'll let that play through all the way first. And there's a slight zoom in of those regions. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back and the atherosclerosis absent from your arteries.